I want to talk about the pectoral girdle of the appendicular skeleton. First bone we're going to talk about is the clavicle bone. So here's your clavicle bone or the collarbone. Here is the sternal end here of your clavicle bone. Here is the acromial end of the clavicle bone. And here is the acromial process or the acromion of the scapula bone. So this brings us over to the scapula or shoulder blade. So here's the scapula here. Here is the left scapula, right scapula. So we have the spine here. Here we have the acromion here. So here's the acromion or the acromial process, which articulates with the acromial end of the clavicle or collarbone. So spine, acromion, supraspinous fossa, and then your infraspinous fossa here. And then you have this notch right here called the suprascapular notch. This is the armpit region right here, and this region right here is called the glenoid fossa or cavity. This region of the humerus bone, so this is the humerus bone, this is called the head of the humerus, and it's going to articulate with the glenoid fossa or cavity. And then we have the superior angle and inferior angle. Here we have the medial border or the vertebral border here because it's close to the vertebrae. And here we have the axial border or lateral border of the scapula. And let's move on to this disarticulated scapula bone. So here is a left scapula bone that's been disarticulated by itself. And here we have the subscapular fossa right here. And here we have the suprascapular notch, superior angle, inferior angle, superior angle, inferior angle. This right here would be the vertebral border, and this would be the axial border right here. Now, this region right here would be the glenoid fossa or cavity. This region right here would be the coracoid process. And we can see it right here as well. So you can see the coracoid process here. And this right here would be the acromion right here, or acromial process of the scapula. Okay, let's flip this over. And we can see the infraspinous fossa and the supraspinous fossa. And then this again is the suprascapular notch. This structure right here is the glenoid fossa. And let me set it up like this. So right here we would have the glenoid fossa here. What is this structure here? Coracoid process. And then this right here is your acromion right here, acromial process. Now, we have the left humerus bone here, and I'm going to articulate it with the head of the humerus here. So you can see how they articulate. And I've already showed you that. So let's look at the humerus. So here is the head region. And let me show you on this articulated skeleton here. So we have the proximal end of the humerus bone. This right here is the greater tubercle. Here is the lesser tubercle. Here is the intertubercular groove here. Greater tubercle, lesser tubercle, intertubercular groove right here. This groove right here, or sulcus. Intertubercular sulcus or groove. Greater tubercle, lesser tubercle. Okay. Right in this area here, we would have the deltoid tuberosity. And let's see. Now we're going to move to the distal region of the humerus bone. And we have some important structures I want to show you. So this structure right here is the medial epicondyle. This structure right here is the lateral epicondyle. Medial epicondyle, lateral epicondyle. Now, this structure right here is the trochlea. This is the trochlea right here. This is the capitulum. This structure right here, this is a fossa. This is called the coronoid fossa. Coronoid fossa. This structure right here, this is another fossa here, just above the capitulum. This is called the radial fossa. So, coracoid, the coronoid fossa, not coracoid, coronoid fossa, and the radial fossa. Now, this is the coronoid process of the ulnar bone. This is the coronoid process of the ulnar bone. This is the radial head here. So, trochlea, capitulum. This right here is the coronoid fossa and radial fossa. Coronoid process, radial head. Let's look at the posterior elbow. So I showed you the anterior elbow. So let's look at the posterior. So right here, we can see the medial epicondyle, lateral epicondyle. This is the radial head. This is the olecranon process here. Olecranon process here. And let me show you the fossa here. So here's your olecranon fossa right here. Okay, let me show you this again on these three bones here. So here's the humerus again. This is the left humerus. Yes. Head. This structure here would be the greater tubercle. This structure here would be the intertubercular sulcus or groove. And then this right here is the lesser tubercle. So greater tubercle, lesser tubercle, the intertubercular groove. The intertubercular groove. Okay. This is the anterior elbow here. And we can see the medial epicondyle, the trochlea, the capitulum, Here is the coronoid process here, where somebody wrote CP. And then we see the head of the radius right here. Here's the radial tuberosity here of the radius bone. So all on the bone. And then we have the coronoid process here. And then we have the radial head and radial tuberosity. Now, we have this right here called the coronoid fossa, radial fossa. And we have the posterior elbow. Again, olecranon process. And then we have the, turn it around this way. So right here, we have the trochlear notch right here. Here is the trochlear notch right here. Here's the olecranon process here. And remember, this is the coronoid process. So trochlear notch is right here. And we have the styloid process here of your ulnar bone. And then we have the styloid process of the radius bone. This is the radius bone. This is the styloid process. Styloid process here of the ulnar bone. And this is the distal end of both the radius and ulna. Styloid process here, styloid process here. Let's move on and do the carpals. So, right here, we have the trapezium here, trapezoid, capitate bone. This is the scaphoid bone, lunate bone, and the hamate bone, triquetrium right here, and pisiform bone right here. So remember, you have your trapezium, trapezoid, capitate, hamate, triquetrium, pisiform right here, scaphoid, and lunate. The scaphoid and lunate are oftentimes broken. Right here we have the radius bone. This is the radius bone, as we see here. The radial head, radial tuberosity, and the styloid process at the distal end of the radius. Okay? Styloid process is the ulnar bone, as we see here, at the distal end. Okay. I want to show you this disarticulated hand, and we can see the trapezium again, trapezoid, capitate, and We have the hamate. And then we have the triquetrium here, scaphoid, and lunate. Let's flip it over. So right here, we have the trapezium, trapezoid, capitate. Hamate has a little projection sticking out right here, and then the pisiform, and then the triquetrium, and then the lunate, and then the scaphoid bone. Those two are oftentimes broken, the scaphoid and the lunate, during a fall. So let's see if I've said everything. Oh yeah, forgot these. So we have the carpals right here, and then your metacarpals here, here, here. All these bones right here where the probe is going by. And then you have the phalanges. So we have proximal phalanx, middle phalanx, and distal. Proximal, middle, and distal. Proximal, middle, and distal phalanges. Proximal, middle, and distal. The thumb just has two. And I think that's it as far as the pectoral girdle of your appendicular skeleton. And I can't remember if I showed you the trochlear notch. So the trochlear notch is right here. Trochlear notch is right here. So you have your olecranon process here, and then your trochlear notch is right there. I think that's it.